Hey guys, Edre here. Today I'm going to be reviewing the new album from punk legend Jello Biafra and his band, the Guantanamo School of Medicine, but that's a long name, so I think I'm just going to stick to saying Jello Biafra in this video. But I'm going to be reviewing his new album, Tea Party Revenge Porn. Interesting title, and I gotta say, I am really excited. I was very excited to hear this album. I know it took me a little while to get around to reviewing it. It did take me a little while to get around to fully embracing it. But I will say right off the bat, Jello Biafra. Before I even get into the sound of this album, god damn, his voice still sounds really good. First things first, excellent singing. For a guy who's probably in his 60s or 70s, I haven't really looked up his age in a while. He still sounds excellent. He's preserved his voice, and that really does help this album out a lot. But as I do with all my videos, I do like to start with a bit of background, but I just had to get that out of the way. I really do enjoy the Dead Kennedys material, especially their debut album, Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables. Without a doubt, one of the most influential, one of the most important and crucial punk albums of the 80s, of hardcore punk, of that California sound, of East Bay, of everything. They are undeniably an influential band that has always had a very political, serious side to them, but without taking themselves too seriously. They've always had a bit of a satirical tone, which I've always enjoyed, which to me has always made their music stand out. You know, obviously the Dead Kennedys haven't really put anything out in a while, and Jello has done quite a few projects since then. I really did feel encouraged to review this, though, because I felt subconsciously that this was going to be a little bit different, that this was going to be a bit of a heated album with everything going on in the world. And I gotta say, I was pretty satisfied. It's a very aggressive punk album. That's to be expected, and it does kind of still play off a lot of those hardcore elements that Jello knows and is used to. But despite Jello aging and getting older, he still sounds relevant, and the subject matter he talks about is still very relevant. Overall, in terms of musicianship here, not only do they sound like they're not a washed-up band, there's just great musicianship and great guitar work throughout this entire project, with overall very well-crafted compositions. Funny enough, there's even some metal riffs on here as well, on songs like Satan's Combover and Taliban USA. Kind of blends in with that hardcore sound they're going with. You do get a bit of chugging, a bit of muted, kind of metal distorted riffs, which I thought was an interesting touch. I love it when he kind of does stuff like that. Despite it remaining very much in the same vein as pretty much everything else Jello Biafra has done, it doesn't sound stale. It still sounds fresh. It still sounds like there was a lot of passion put into it. It doesn't sound like he's just rehashing the same ideas over and over again as a clutch. It instead feels like he's using a genre he knows he's passionate with to make some of the best music he possibly can. They even explore a bit of a twangy sound, a bit of a western sound on songs like No More Selfies, which I thought was a hilarious one. Now, diving into the lyrics and the subject matter of this album, lyrically it follows a very expected political tone. That should be expected from Jello Biafra, and it really should be expected with this year we're all living in. It has a fair amount of that Dead Kennedys-esque satire, which I've come to know and love from Jello Biafra and pretty much everything he's done. He really does have a great sense of humor, and he knows how to write music from the other person's perspective. Like the closing track on this album starts off with him in the shoes of an anti-masker. I don't want to wear no damn mask. I just love the way he writes stuff from the other person's satirical perspective and makes it just joyful and entertaining. Go back to the Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables and a song like Kill the Poor. That's obviously a satirical song written from the perspective of the oppressor. And I gotta say, that continues onto this album. You know, the song People with Too Much Time on Their Hands also references a handful of fun, just interesting conspiracy theories regarding from controversial things such as 9/11 to Obama's birther conspiracy that was big a decade ago. And the song We Created Putin is just a great example of their satire and humor, with a really kind of interesting switch to a reggae tone on that song, which I thought, not a reggae tone, no, a reggae tone on that song. Overall, I thought that We Created Putin was a really fun, energetic, kind of silly track that I thought was executed excellently. Now, with all that being said, do I have some complaints here a little bit? I do. I do think there is a bit of weak and predictable spots that show up a little bit time and time again on this album, such as the track Taliban USA. I felt like a song like that was a bit predictable. I sort of knew where it was going. I kind of got the memo a bit early, and even some of the songs later on in this album I do get that feeling with. And overall, I guess my overall just general criticism of the project is that, even though I do like the fact that he is still going heavy on the politics, and I do think he does, that's his strong point lyrically, he's really good at writing lyrics like that. I do think there are some songs where it's a bit too upfront, to the point where once this year's over and we progress as a society, I could see some of these songs not aging as well, such as the ones regarding masks and regarding the election. And a lot of that I could see, since it's so directly written about the virus, about the political turmoil we are in right now, I could see that once inevitably this blows over, I could see how the songs like this might not age nearly as well. I do think writing-wise, he did write very literally, which is also a good part about this album. I may criticize him for doing that in terms of the long term, but in terms of just a short-term project, I think it makes him unique. It makes him a very unique writer that really writes things satirically and very upfront without much filter, which I really just enjoy. At the end of the day, really at the end of the day here, we should just all be grateful that Jello has blessed us here, or just blessed us and comforted us in this tumultuous political landscape we're all living in. If you're in America, if you're in Europe, if you're around the world, quite honestly, things are just crazy. Now, I'm not going to sit here and have a political rant about why they're crazy, but I think most people can agree they are. So, at the end of the day, Jello Biafra really did, and his band, really did hit it out of the park with the Tea Party revenge porn. I really think they did make a relevant album that really not only speaks to now, but I think just definitely shows that he still has stuff to write about. He still is passionate about this style of music. It doesn't come across as stale or old. It comes across as fresh and full of passion. So at the end of the day, I have settled on giving this album, Tea Party Revenge Porn, a light 8 out of 10, which is a good review. I'm glad that I liked this album, because I really wanted to like this album, because I really do enjoy Jello Biafra's humor and his sound and his style and all that, and his voice especially. So I'm glad that I was left being satisfied with a new album from Jello Biafra. Not only is it just a solid punk album, it's the perfect album for the time we're living in now. That is it for now. 8 out of 10. Goodbye.